And we are live. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and welcome to the Standard Array on Sunday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. I have a very special guest with me tonight, and his name is CJ from the Don't Stop Thinking YouTube channel. I caught a bunch of his videos early on when I was thinking about doing videos about being a DM, and I would see his stuff in the different feeds of like when I was looking up Jordan videos, or I was looking up WebDM videos, or I was looking up Matt Colville videos, and every now and his was come up, and he had a really cool thumbnail for some of his stuff. And then I jumped onto his YouTube channel, and he's got really cool stuff. And then not too long ago, he had a video about doing or Adventure League game about running Adventure League games at the PAX Australia. And that was when I said, that's it. I got to send CJ an email. I said, I want to bring him on the show and just talk to him about DMing, all the different aspects of it, all the different things out there. And so I have him on. So you can see me in the video here, but we have CJ on our Discord so that we can hear him. And we're just going to have an awesome conversation. And CJ, how you been doing? How has things been since you've got back from PAX Australia? Like that was a couple months ago, right?
Well, that was almost a year ago. And by the way, good day, everyone. Hello from all the way down under from Australia.
Yeah. We really appreciate that you're up. The time change is almost like a 13 hour. Did we decide, or a 15 hour? So
Yeah, well, actually, we just had our own daylight saving leap now. So it is one. It's actually 11 a.m. in the morning,
oh, okay,
Monday.
nice.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
crazy.
So that
Well,
video was
yeah.
made for the PAX about a year ago. So that wasn't the most recent PAX Australia, or is there a PAX Australia coming up pretty soon?
Well, actually, yeah, I guess, it just feels like a year ago because it was 2017, but it happened around October or November. Yeah, it
Yeah. Okay.
almost it feels almost like a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun.
Right. Yeah, and with PAX, running Adventure League, I run different games. Like I run my home games, I run my Adventure League games. But it's a really whole different like beast that you need to like approach kind of differently.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah, I thought that'd be great. That one of the topics we could jump into. So this last year, I went to Gen Con, which is probably the big role play game here in the states. Started way back, but
yeah,
down
yeah.
in Indianapolis, it's the big one everybody tries to get over to. And I ran the first year I went, I ran a bunch of Masks and a bunch of Powered by the Apocalypse games. But I've also been looking at running D&D or some Numenera games. But I thought a lot of times when you see a lot of videos online, if you go to look up DM advice, or you go to look up, I want to run my first game, a lot of it comes from that perspective of you're going to run it for your friends at your table, or maybe you're going to play maybe online, maybe they're all going to sign in online and you're going to use a virtual tabletop. But I haven't seen a ton of videos talking about, hey, you're going to go play for random strangers and either do one shots or adventures that are meant for like a adventure league or a pathfinder society that are kind of set out. And that's kind of a different thing you have to think about when running that. And I know you did a little bit of video, but I was hoping we could dive into it a little bit. What do you think is the biggest difference between, say, running it for your friends, or maybe running it for people with a virtual tabletop, but then going to a convention, sitting at a table, and then just strangers just sit down and start playing?
And I guess because I have a bit of a like experience in other field like the university uh, TV production society and things like that. So I'm one of the first things is that you need to you need to toughen up your nerves a bit because you will be performing in front of a lot of people, a lot of strangers. That's one thing, but I know that a lot of people are like they are feeling a bit nervous, and your nervousness can really kill a lot of your mojo, really. And that's one thing. And the other thing is that a lot of these people they started they come in as beginners or people who has like not played the game for a really long time. So you really can't wait for them to start developing all their skills and things like that. So you have to like create a bit of a sort of a railroad for that adventure. That may sound bad, you know, it's like railroading people. It sounds bad, but to be honest, all comes in a matter of perspective because um, it depends on how much option they're given. So usually I just like start, you know, the way I dungeon master is a bit different. I'm a bit of a like a player advocate. So I just start with giving them a few suggestions. What are the most rational choice of action they can take? But you know, they are free to suggest something new all the time. So I'm just like more like a facilitator, like trying to there's a bit of like get everybody's thought into something coherent, a bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because because sometimes when you have a group of strangers like gathering, you know, it's really difficult to get them to agree on one thing. So I have to like kind of help them decide or help them make a certain decision.
Yeah, I kind of ran into that. So I was at the a convention just yesterday, and I was running a game, and I had one friend who showed up and wanted to play in the game just to because they like playing in the games. But we had four people I'd never met, four people that had never really met each other, and there's a tension there. I think for a lot of players when they sit down because they don't quite know. They don't have a chemistry built with anybody else at the table yet, right? So as the person running the game, they kind of look to you to set that tone a little bit and to make it this easygoing and open, and you're asking questions and you're smiling a lot and you're trying to make them feel comfortable so that because to role play I think in front of other people there's still a little bit of that anxiety, there's a little bit of that fear to say, hey, I'm gonna play an elf or a dwarf in front of somebody I don't really know, and we all have that deep down fear that we might be judged or we might be ridiculed. Back when we were really nerdy, or we were in the libraries playing as kids or whatever it might be. But even when we go to a convention where we know it's more of a safe space than probably anywhere else you would go to, we still have that fear when we sit down until that GM, I think, is the person that really eases everything up and just says, just by being engaging and asking about, how's the convention going? Oh, here's the character sheets. We're going to talk about rules and getting everybody going and engaging all the different people, showing that, we can all be open with each other. We're all going to support each other. And I like the thing that you said, the biggest part is what I have noticed too, is that somebody who goes to a convention to play at one of those games, a lot of times they may not have played that role-playing game at all. So they might have just heard about it and said, maybe I'll try a game out because before I go buy stuff and before I talk my friends into playing and all that, maybe I'll just try one at one of these conventions. So you're GMing a game, you're creating a safe space for people to have a fun storytelling adventure, but a lot of times you're also teaching somebody brand new who's never even played. So there's a lot on your plate as a GM, but I don't want to say that scare people off from doing it, because I think of all the GMing I've done, it feels to me the most rewarding to introduce a game to somebody who's never played and you were the first person to help them play. And when they leave your table and they're excited and maybe they're going to go buy a book, or maybe they go buy some dice, or they can't wait to go home and talk to their friends and play, you did that, right? You were the ones that were able to do that. And there's nothing like helping people out. I just think that's really cool. And I think it lends to what you were saying, is that it's a little different because you have to make it open. You have to make them feel comfortable, but you can't give them too many options, right? Because they're so new. You can't just say, hey, we're going to play a big old open sandbox game and you have 25 different classes you can choose from, and hey, you can pick this 5 different pages of feats and all this stuff. You gotta ramp it down a little bit because they want to learn, and you got to make it a little tighter storyline and show the game off. And like for your convention, for all the slots I did, they were 4-hour slots. Was that what you were running?
Yeah, let's see. I remember like 2-hour slots.
So less. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're trying to be concise in 2 hours. That's pretty hard to do too.
Some of them are smaller, like mini adventures that's supposed to be done in 1 hour. So you don't really need to like whip them into actually running through the whole dungeon.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and it's really hard, especially when you have people, when you have to teach them everything from scratch. So sometimes it's really helpful to get to find the person that who is actually a bit more experienced, and I guess have them just kind of like prompt them to do some stuff, and because like monkey see monkey do it. If
Yeah.
somebody does something, they can learn really quickly. Just learn by watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I always
That,
like to,
that's
like, right when I sit down at the table and I'm kind of introduce myself and people are sitting there in that awkward moment, I like to ask, okay, so who's played before? And, a couple of them will say, well, I've never played before. And then there'll be the person, usually get one person at the table or more that's like, oh, I've played quite a bit. I always look at them and say, all right, well, you're going to help me with rules. When I get something wrong, you're going to help me out. Or if somebody needs to know something, you're going to help out and really get them engaged too. Because if you got somebody who knows how to play, you can kind of, like you said, have them help you make the others comfortable and facilitate showing, hey, this is, when we say, what do you do next? They can show some of those things that they do, or they can show how they're taking their turn.
well, when as you say, sometimes with all this, uh, the thing is, with a lot of with some people who are coming into a tabletop role playing game the first time, it's like there is an issue with them trying to get everything perfect. It's like perfection is the enemy of good. The people are trying too hard to create the perfect, flawless plan, and they never get to do anything. So, as a dungeon master, I kind of like have to like uh, create a sort of like a time limit for them to actually start doing things, because otherwise they could talk about it the whole night. It is fun, like it's like if you want to like do a heist sort of like quest, if you're
Yeah.
playing with your friends, it's great. You can spend one or even like 2 sessions just planning, and then you actually get to do it. But in convention, you don't have that sort of luxury, so you have to like kind of help them formulate that plan. And it's a bit of that sort of like uh, sort of you have to like kind of help them decide.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what helps us do that as DM or GM. So if you volunteer and you're going to run something that's an organized play, so like you're doing Adventure League or you're doing Pathfinder Society or any of the other games that have like an organized living campaign where people can sign up and do that campaign. A lot of times they have very detailed adventures that you're going to run for them. So they've kind of kept in mind the number of players that you might have. They've kept in mind the time slot that you're going to doing, and they make a pretty tight adventure for you to run. Sometimes when you volunteer for game companies, they might not have something. So I think one of the things that you can kind of keep in mind too, if you're going to build your own, it's really, to me, within a couple of hours, you get just a few types of scenes that you can do, right? If you break it down almost if it was like a movie or a TV show. And in that, you're trying to think of like, I want to have a character introduction scene a little bit so that they can interact. And the reason we want that is so that the players at the table can get used to talking with each other and understanding the role play part of the game, which is just, discussing something or having a nice conversation with one of the other characters, get to know what they look like, maybe what they can do. You want to have a scene that might have to do with when they get the main quests they're going to do, maybe an investigation scene where they can round up some information that leads up to a battle scene of some sort. And what that helps with is the investigation scene is a lot of skill check kind of stuff and more role play. And then the combat's all about showing you how the combat rounds work and how abilities work and things. And so you can structure what you're going to play. It can be fun. In some ways, like you said, it's a railroad, but it's not a bad railroad. It's not the railroad where it has a bad name. It's the type that's great for teaching somebody the game, bringing people together that don't have chemistry yet, and keeping it confined to that time slot that you have, because you may not be able to have a 5-hour session, on the weekend at your table. You're only going to get so much time with them at that convention before they say, oh, I got to go because I signed up for another game and I got to run off and go do that, or I got to go to the merchants and I got to go buy this new t-shirt that I wanted to get before I leave, and that kind of stuff. So as far as like all of the ones you've ran, have they been prepared adventures, or have you had to prepare something and be ready, like it was like a homebrew adventure that you created?
Well, I haven't got the opportunity to create any of those. Yeah, I've been running prepared adventures. It's really things that they have uh, uh, that has been selected for the different dungeon masters. But the thing is, some of them are. I do think that some of them sometimes are not suitable for a really short, runtime because some of them have like special rules. Like for example, with this current season, we have the dinosaur racing sort of game, right? And that is something completely different from I get to run that, and the rule set is something completely different from normal D&D. So uh, sometimes it's kind of hard trying to teach them D&D when I introduce something that's not very relevant to
Yeah.
the whole D&D, the core experience. So I have to like improvise quite a few stuff without like watering down everything. So I have to simplify a few rules as much as I am allowed, according to the Adventurers League rule.
Ah, cool.
Because
So, have you heard anything like it feels like there's probably a new Adventure League season coming? It sounded
that's
like I
right.
started hearing them talk about like they were asking questions about like what we would want to see next, and it seemed like they were getting ready to maybe, because how long has this one been going now? The current
It's
one seems like it's been about a year, right? It's got to be almost time for it to switch to the next one.
I think it's about 6 months now
Yeah.
because the last one that came out was Tomb of Annihilation, and I think it came out around October. I'm not sure. Well, the thing is, I think they are going to make a major change with the Adventurers League. First of all, the thing they are looking at is the leveling up uh, progression
Hmm.
because they might be using a time-based milestone instead of experience point.
Oh.
Because yeah, experience point, uh, you know, it takes a really long time until people get to level up. And even though the thing is, it also penalizes players for role playing. If they spend too much time role playing and not getting into combat, they couldn't get any experience point and they couldn't level up.
Right. So it makes Adventure League more centric to killing because you need your XP if you're going to level up. And it felt like some of the ones that I've heard about the downside of Adventure League is that maybe RP is kind of swept to the side because people want to get through that content, get their XP and get their reward and be ready for the next thing. So it wasn't promoting what the 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 pillars of D&D, which is it is combat, but it's also the story RP narrative. It's also the three pillars. I think they always explain them as
So,
exploration, combat, and interaction, or they have another word for that, like that basically means role play.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is true though. But yeah, one of the things with D&D is that they have don't have any codified rule of how interaction should go. It's not like I guess they have something for fourth edition, but in fifth edition it's pretty loose. And when I try to run like mystery, because I also run Call of Cthulhu. That's another really favorite game of mine. It's the thing is, with a lot of this game, they expect you they expect the players to know how to solve mysteries. They expect them to have watched detective shows and so on. Play with some people who have really no idea how to investigate things, what to investigate, how to talk to people, how to get information out of them. They just uh, the first thing they would do is just to torture them, being like mostly murder hobos, like or
Yeah.
graduate hobos. Yeah, they don't know how to solve mysteries, and you kind of have to teach them, and because in D&D there's almost like a unwritten sort of like progression. If you fought enough combat, you know how to fight efficiently. But if it doesn't really there really isn't a framework for teaching you how to role play with D&D. It just everything is up to the DM.
Hmm.
And with fifth edition, it's great that DM get more say. They get more control over the game. But it's you kind of have to teach them yourself. There is no ladder for them to progress in terms of social interaction or in terms of exploration, like solving mysteries and so on.
Right. Yeah, we had a good question from Chad. It says, as DMs who run one shots or sessions for new characters, how do you allow time for player character interactions and role playing in the limited time you have in those organized sessions? That's pretty good.
Right, yeah. Usually I create dilemmas and I just create interaction between players because uh, you know usually if a player is playing a rogue or a player is playing a barbarian, I will just like say well, we know somebody in the group is kind of suited for this job, and started like if somebody wants to do something, I just like tell them, you can do it, and this other player, he's pretty good at it too. Maybe he can help you, and just like get the two of them to work together. And also because in fifth edition, if you help another player, they get advantage, and it kind of works out in the end. So in a way, I also teach them the mechanic and also try to facilitate this sort of like teamwork to also get them to get something happening to break the ice between people, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and I think one way you can do that, if you see like your players are a little tentative, it's about, from a GM perspective, asking good questions, but asking questions that encourages them to talk with each other, right? So never just ask the question that only the one person can answer. Ask the question where they're going to have to discuss it a little bit, and that gets them into the mode of talking with each other, role playing it, give them a little spotlight here or there, and then be ready to move it on, when it's time to say, okay, now we got to move on, and here's where this information you got, you want to go to the next objective type thing. But you're adding little spotlight pieces, and you can encourage that by just the types of questions you're asking. So if you're just careful with asking them leading questions that allows them to follow that lead, I think helps out quite a bit. And you have really, I run a ton of one shots on my channel, and I bring in a lot of diverse cast, and most of the time, if you just give them some room, they're gonna fill in that space for you. So it's it can just be, give them a little bit, start to show what your use kind of language that says, oh, that's great, but now we're ready to move on. We got to we got to keep it going a little bit, but it's like saying it in a nice way, and then that way you can keep an eye on time. Though I'm terrible at having all my adventures end on time. It always seems like I need just one more session.
Yeah, it always happens.
Yeah.
Even even running this sort of game, I kind of like had to aim to at least finish the three-fourths of the allotted time. Like packing up, or even I have to like even account for packing up time, and even account for people wanting to level up, getting all the sort of paperwork done, and
Mm-hmm.
filling in the log sheet for Adventurers League. So yeah, it leaves me with even less time to actually run the adventure.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
It
So
could be.
I think there's some other cool stuff I was hoping we could take a look at, because like I was recently, you've been doing a lot of like D&D class guides, so those have been happening for quite a while, and I noticed there, like, your class guide was the overall class, and those were super cool, but there was almost like an artistic change when you started doing some subclasses. So what was that? Were you just trying something different, or did you really want both series to have kind of a different look and feel?
Actually, it's more like respecting the wizards, respecting more of their copyright. Actually,
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I noticed like
yeah,
the
it's like
subclasses looks more like you're using more of the D&D 5e art, but you also use some really cool graphics that showed like almost like power levels of something or levels of something using
Well, yeah,
dots and stuff.
yeah,
So
I
it was really
really
clear.
use that.
Yeah, go ahead.
That for the general class guide, and I can get into more details about that because it's those information are on part of the open gaming license, and yeah, that's a bit of a secret. Usually I don't talk about what goes into the sausage, but yeah, I guess I'll just say something about this. It's like uh, currently the subclasses, the information, they are not part of the open gaming license, so I don't think I can display them in text or prominently anywhere because it belongs to Wizard. And meanwhile, with the other information that I can, you know, yeah, I can just like talk about them a bit more.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's somebody that's a YouTube kind of, well, us as content creators, we have to keep an eye on that kind of stuff. I do know that Wizards of the Coast is really good about letting content creators use a lot of their stuff, promoting the game. They're not one of the types of companies that kind of hammer down on copyright issues on the Twitches or the things. But you're absolutely right. When you're a YouTube content creator, you got to keep an eye on what you're using in your YouTube channels and stuff. But I really like the animations that you were doing, and even the infographic that you were using on the two different series. I just thought, oh, they're very, you get a lot of information for a single screen, and you're really good at that. You must do that, like, not just in your YouTube channel. Do you make infographics or something in real life, or because you're really good at it?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm doing graphic as part of my day job. Yeah, motion graphics and do like for TV ads, and I do a bit of like video editing for animation and stuff like that. Some of them are feature films, DVD animations, but it's it's always been something I really like to do. It's like because uh, I seem to have a difficulty like everything that's in text. So I'm really a visual person. So I just think about what I really need to see in one screen that will help me learn this. Just to just imagine if someone who's completely new, need
Yeah.
one screen that will distill all the information in one screen. How would I do it? And it's a bit of a challenge for myself too because yeah, it's a lot of information.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's
Some of
funny
them
because
really.
in my real life, what I do too is I work with companies that have big databases of information. So a lot of times, and I use a program that writes reports against those databases. So they've got thousands and thousands and thousands of records, and they want to see this information. But mostly, if you just send them a big spreadsheet of information, it's just this big block of text of information. And a lot of times, I think the art of understanding your database and your information is about showing it visually in such a way that you can look at it and then make decisions or make choices based on it without having to go line by line in a spreadsheet to see all these different numbers. And it's not something I'm great at, but when I was looking at those infographics, I thought that's exactly what I should be doing for my software. Is like, that's the kind of stuff they want to see when they have a million records. They want it broken down into what's important. Show me the important things, show me the trends that stand out, or show me the things that stand out visually so it catches my eye, and don't that way I don't have to read through spreadsheets and have my brain try to collate it for me. So it was just I think that's one of the reasons I was really attracted to a lot of the stuff you were doing, because it also has made me start thinking about what I could be doing in my regular day job too.
That, yeah, it's like it's really data visualization,
Yeah.
and yeah, because seen those like TED videos of Hans Rosling and everything like that. You can break down such a complex subject, with just a few images, and it's just really great. And with if if Dungeon Dragon is like such a like a narrative driven thing, I kind of wonder how if they are thinking of like incorporating more graphic into it. It's like I have seen some Japanese tabletop RPGs that use a lot of graphic that really like the uh, like character sheet and everything like that. That
Mm-hmm,
is,
mm-hmm.
yeah, have graphics for everything, and it's like it's really easy to understand. And I'm just kind of wondering, if it's they're going to make more, they're going to incorporate that into their future design or
Well, yeah,
not.
I think so because if you look at like board games these days, like in the last 2 years, the quality of board game materials out there, the quality of the boards they're making, the turn counters, the cards that play, or the quality of the card games that are out there that are all visual and they're striking and they draw your eyes, but they still are dealing with lots of information just like an RPG is. I think RPGs is going to catch on to that too because it feels like you're talking about the Call of Cthulhu game, a lot of the games that Modiphius is putting out, a lot of the games that D&D and Pathfinder. It feels like they're drawing a lot more on their art assets and it's a lot more on visualization of information. I think maybe they're a little behind the curve a little bit. I think board games have gotten there first, and I think card games have definitely gotten there, and I think they're getting there, but they just haven't quite caught up. But I think you're right. I think they're gonna find more visual ways to express the information they need to entice people's imaginations and to show them the same information, but in a quicker, more efficient, cleaner way for them to take it in.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of like looking at the way Dungeons and Dragons Beyond is going. Right now, it's pretty good. It's uh, looking at the UI and everything, it's really nice. It's really clean, but it's still a lot of information. I'm just kind of wondering if they're gonna turn it into more of a like sort of like a faster, like quicker app, or like you can create a more because augmented reality
Oh yeah,
that's being worked on right now, and it would be really great, if you can just see people's what's it, like their statistics,
right.
immediately just by looking at the player,
Yeah.
rather than asking them all the time. That would save a lot of time because when it comes to playing games and so on, I just I haven't showed this in any of my videos, but I create a lot of props and sort of almost like a UI elements for my characters. When I play a barbarian, I have like my barbarian's face. Like I create three different faces. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm down to like 50% hit points, I pull up the full health hit point to reveal the slightly wounded face. And then if I get into like under like 25%, I show a really bloodied face and so on.
Oh,
And
that's nice.
rage counters too. So that whenever I use them, everybody on the table can see how I'm doing, and you see if they see that I'm doing badly, so I need heal. I just like just pull up one of my cards and show the bloodied face of my barbarian. Says, well, this obviously this guy needs healing. Yeah,
Oh,
that
that's
saves a
cool.
lot
That's a
of time.
cool idea. So what is your favorite class to play at the moment?
As is well, barbarian has always been a favorite of mine, but the bard is also really great. I really like the bard. It's uh, solving problems without resorting to fireball is pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like the idea of finding ways to use spells or abilities, maybe not the way the person wrote them meant, but you come up with creative ways to use them that are very problem solving and very cool and different. Yeah, I'm playing a
Well,
barbarian right now in Tomb of Annihilation on a Twitch channel where it's Adventure League Tomb of Annihilation, and we just hit third level, so I've got to make my choice before Tuesday if I'm going to do Storm Herald or Zealot. So I've got that big choice coming up, so that's pretty exciting. But man, I love Warlock a lot.
yeah, they're really massive damage dealers, and they're also kind of like really versatile. You can turn them into like a face of the party with all their disguises and things like that. It's really cool, but it is pretty balanced because they're kind of squishy too.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So it's you like other role playing games. In fact, you did a video that I liked and watched a couple times, which were It was like the top 5 RPGs that weren't D&D, or it was like, or at least ones that you thought were really good games that weren't D&D. And I know you talked about Call of Cthulhu, and I thought, oh, that's a good. Now that's the one that is by Modiphius, right?
No, it's by Chaosium.
Chaos. Okay, so there's a couple of them out there that are different Cthulhu games. I'm gonna have to look up which one it's called. It might be. Oh, I'm trying to remember which one it is, but I feel like I want to play in one of these games. Tell us a little bit about it. What is it that you like about that game? What is it in it that could really draw people to it?
Well, with D&D, it's the journey, a search for power, isn't it? It's like the will to power, almost like a Nietzsche. Like you want to become stronger, you gain power, and it's like very primal sort of desire of most people to become more powerful, more influential, and stuff like that. But Call of Cthulhu is the complete opposite of that. It's like the complete opposite of experience that Dungeons and Dragons doesn't give you. You have to run away from all the like cosmic eldritch horror that's out there trying to destroy not only you but the world. The thing is, uh, sometimes when you become insane, when you or if you get killed, it's a bit of a mercy because you don't have to watch the world crumble before you as you are experiencing a really painful death or loss of mind. It's more of a like survival horror sort of experience. You are really weak, a mortal that has to use your brain. You really use your mind to solve mysteries and find ways to like to go up against something that's so much bigger than you that it just feels impossible most of the time.
Oh, cool. Now, is it a D20 system, or what kind of dice system are they using?
System they use the percentile dice, so
Percentile. Okay.
it's yeah, that's the 2d10. So the higher your skill is, you have to roll under your skill. So your skill can go up to 99, and if you roll the dice under it, then you succeed in something. So the system is a bit loose. Sometimes when there is a difficult challenge, you have and you have like 80 point in that skill, you have to roll 40. So you roll it's a bit of an abstract sort of system.
Okay. Yeah.
uh, a really important differentiation of that game is that you don't level up like a Skyrim. You have all these different skills, and if you get to successfully use them at the end of an adventure, say a mystery, uh, you get to improve that one skill, a general improvement.
Oh, okay. So it's like the ones you're using are the ones you're improving.
And also, it's a really important bit is actually uh, the sanity points that is other, something that you really should keep in mind of because don't just die, you can also go insane.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of like the genres always talks about that, is that the Call of Cthulhu portion.
That's right. And you know, part is that you feel like it is because you don't level up, your hit point doesn't increase at all ever, unless for some reason, through story reason, you uh, constitution points or something like that. But that's very rare. So you have like a survival mode really.
Ah,
So you
gotcha.
really have to rely on your cunning, on your plans, on your skills, whatever.
Yeah, the game I was thinking about that comes from Odysseus is they call it Octoon Cthulhu, and it's a role
Oh,
playing game
Achtung.
they did. Yeah. So that was the one I was thinking of, but you were talking about the Chaosism one. So I'll have to look into that one too, because I have a couple friends that like we played there's some board games that do a lot of that theme, the Cthulhu theme, the Eldritch horror kind of mansions and things like that. And we really like those games, but I bet we could have a really fun role play game. So I was thinking about looking into some of these other role playing games too. They look pretty cool.
The Achtung Cthulhu was, I don't know if they have changed it, but it was originally based on Call of Cthulhu's system. It's still the basic role playing system, the D100.
Yeah, it could very well. But yeah, it looks like it because I mean, a lot of the stuff looks the same. Maybe it's a re-release of it, or maybe they have the rights to release stuff on it now, and it feels like it's connected to that.
It is because Chaosium do license a lot of their stuff to many different companies.
Ah, okay.
Uh, People 7 did one on Laundry Files. So it's a Call of Cthulhu in a modern setting based on the Laundry Files series of novels. You can use mobile phones and laptop to cast like really esoteric spells.
Oh, nice. All right.
It's it's more of a like a satire on modern life and corporate life because you can also lose sanity having to do paperwork at the department.
That's awesome. So, are there any RPGs that are coming out or brand new that you're looking forward to? I noticed you talked about Pathfinder 2E a little bit, so you've heard about the playtest for that. Or is there some type of Kickstarter you're a part of a new game that's coming out, or have you heard of one that's really excited that's maybe it's not out quite yet, but you're looking forward to?
Uh, Missed out on Matt Coldfield's Kickstarter. I would have kickstarted that, but I just kind of like forgot, and yeah, I should have done that. Other than that, nothing new coming up besides Pathfinder. I still have yet to look into Starfinder
Okay, yeah.
because I'm really interested in the aspect of it because another passion of mine is mecha. It's like a giant, enormous robots, and
Yes.
I guess yeah, and even like a spaceships or whatever. I'm kind of wondering if because since so many people are actually asking for a mecha like add-on or Finder, I'm kind of wondering if they're ever going to release something like that because the last one that I have seen that's pretty good was Mechton
Yeah.
done by Mike Pondsmith.
Okay.
It's really good. It's really good fun to actually create your mecha, but playing it is a bit clunky at times, actually.
Interesting. You're not seeing it, but I'm shaking my head in emphatic yes because I would totally want to play. I mean, back in the day, one of the ones I played quite a bit was BattleTech Mech Warrior, but then also the Robotech role playing game, and those are 80s role playing games that I would love to see somebody modernize or take that same kind of genre, that same kind of feeling, but put it in a more of a modern rule set. Something that's a little easier digestible, a little bit faster play, but give us the ability to role play. Southern Cross or Gundam, or I would even play Voltron. I would play. There's all kinds of really cool mech style stories out there that you could play, and anime is filled with amazing mech or mecha style storylines that all of us would love to play.
And but the thing is, with all these mecha RPGs that I've looked into, there seems to be a really big issue that I'm trying to find a solution to because if you're in a mecha, you have built your mecha, you're powerful in it, are feeling pretty confident, you can go up against the challenges provided by the game master. But if you feel so completely vulnerable, I have a lot of like really cowardly players who just never get out of their mecha. So yeah, it's a bit of an issue sometimes.
Oh right, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're ever gonna create RPG, you call me up because I'll help you out for sure. Like that's something I'd be totally interested in. Because I think, well, I bought the Cipher system, which is a one of those role playing systems that basically says you can play any genre you want. And in there, they mention if you want to play giant robot game, you can use this system to do that too. So that was one of the things that drew me to it, to be able to play a modern system, to be able to play a sci-fi system or a robot system or just anything, a Wild West if you wanted to. I'm kind of have started looking at these other systems that are multi-genre inclusive to see if I can play some of those cool ideas. Because I like the idea of, like you're saying, for me, it was MechWarrior. It was the idea of giant robots that fought in mercenary companies. They earned money by taking odd jobs, and they could salvage mech parts off the field, and then they could get another job and go to another planet and do some stuff. And it seems like there's a lot of fun for a group of players to do that with.
Yeah.
And you know, there's just nobody out there servicing that fan base right now. So those sound super fun. If you find one, let me know. I'll be the player. And I won't be afraid. I'll jump out, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's sometimes it's like it's pretty funny watching like some. Have you ever had this issue with some of your players, like them just making it a sport to just evade every chance of adventure that you throw at them?
So far, I've been really good about picking players, but it's funny you say that because I just heard another couple of DMs that I was talking to mention the same thing, that they had a group of players that were
Mhm.
doing everything they can to avoid your setup storyline, or avoid, kind of what the normal thing would be to do, almost as if it's funny to them in a meta sort of way, right? And so the person that was asking advice of Adam Coble was the one I can think of. He does a lot. He does office hours, which is like GM advice, and he was talking about how to kind of address this, the issue, and how to talk with your players and stuff. But so far I haven't. But I've been hearing about it. I've been hearing people have had this trouble. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. What
yeah.
did you do? How did you handle it?
Usually you have to like really go into that character. It's like they have to like just kind of like create a sort of like situation where it is worse for them to not actually do something. Uh, they have a backstory. So I started going by their relatives or their families. That's real life. There are some situations where people will be trying to they will be pushed to do something.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
Do you find
and
do you feel like they were engaged with the storyline, or do you think it's a response to them not being engaged with the storyline? Like, so you have this thing set up that seems like a reasonable thing that heroes would go out and do, but for some reason they're just not clicking with that, so they're just finding something else to do? Or is it because they're just good friends of yours and they know they can, mess with you a little bit or play around with you a little bit?
well, that too,
That
that
too.
too.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a matter of risk. How much reward are they going to get out of it? Like sometimes it's not like just gold rewards or experience point. It's more like a narrative reward. How much they are investing, how much they are risking their character safety to for this narrative that they're going to invest themselves in. They could get their character killed, and they would just lose all the possibility of the resolution of their like overarching storyline
Oh, so
for
it's like it's
questions.
a sign of them being really attached to their character, and they don't want to do anything that would endanger their character because they just really like their character then.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of players are like that in a
Oh
way
yeah.
because more than like video games. Because if you die in video games, you can just start and continue as a new character. But in is there's a sense of finality, almost like if you, even though in most games there are resurrection spells or ways of resurrecting your character, but once they die, it feels as if the character is gone for good.
Hmm. Yeah, I can
Like
see
it's
that.
not
Yeah, that
it's
makes
the same
sense. Yeah, and
character.
they don't want to put them in danger, and so they
Mhm.
try to find other ways to do it. That makes sense. Yeah, it's something that I would have to I would have to see on the fly what I would do when I started noticing that, like the idea. I don't know how I would tackle it. Sometimes you don't know an answer until it happens to you, and you're you're sitting there and it's presented, and you have to kind of work your way through it. I think one good thing that we can all tell GMs and DMs is that you're never always going to have the right answer or a answer at the moment. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just have to roll with what it is, and maybe talk about it after the session, get your players to help talk about it. One of the best pieces of advice I got from another GM was the idea that it's not your job, and this is with the quotes of the GM, to know
Mhm.
every single rule or be the one that makes sure everybody's having fun. It's actually all of ours jobs. It's everybody at the table is there equally to pitch in to make sure we're all having fun, GM included. And if we're going to adjust a rule or we're going to add a rule that we think would make things fun, it's about the whole group coming up with a rule that everybody likes, or the whole group pitching in so that we're all invested in the game. And it's not just on our shoulders to say, all right, here's my ruling and here's my thing, and I'm going to make sure everybody's going to have fun. It's like bring them in to help you. They're there to have fun with you. They're there to support you. You're there to support them, and it's a team game. It's not just your thing.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I'm about to like talk about that in one of my videos because currently I'm doing the How to Dungeon Master series for complete beginners
Hmm.
because there are a lot of really completely new beginners out there, people who don't even have any friends to play Dungeons and Dragons with. They have to be the ones who start as a dungeon master. People in some like really faraway places and things like that. So one of the things that I want to like other dungeon master is that create a sort of like a job division, a responsibility division. It's like at least the player should be able to learn their character's special abilities or their features, and and then after that, there are things like the character's backstory and also the characters all they have all met. I would have different notes compared to them. If there are any special relationship and so on, they are the ones who should like keep tabs on that because they are the ones who can benefit from that.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I think that was one of the things I did when. It's funny because you mentioned that, because like I have been a player since the '80s, but I was only a player. It was only 2 years ago that I decided to be a GM, and it was because I was having fun as a player. But I got into a point where I couldn't find a game to play in. Like I had asked some friends and nobody had any time, and I wanted to put this together. And I finally, after listening to some of the people that inspired me to GM, was like Matt Koval and Adam Koval, and they were just saying, you know what, don't wait for a game to come your way, create one. Get it, you organize it, you be the GM. And I was like, oh, you know what, I'm finally going to do it. I'm finally going to do it. And I've realized I should never have waited so long to be the GM and the DM, because it's so much fun and I enjoy it a lot. And one of the things that I did when we started out, I finally told my friends, I'm going to run a game, but here's the thing, I need help. I'm going to learn the game rules, but you need to know your player rules. So when you do a player ability, you need to be able to explain it to me and everybody at the table the right way and the way it's supposed to be, so that I don't have to go look that up. And they all bought into that. And I was like, you guys learn your things, and that will help me so I can pay attention to what the grapple rules are, or what the turn order is, or what the initiative rolls are, or, what all that stuff is that I got to take care of and run a story. But you guys run your players. And that was just the first part of offloading some of that workload that I think some people think the GM has to do it all. And the reality is you don't. Your players can help you with that. They can help you understand the rules. Everybody should be able to understand the rules. Don't be afraid to look up a rule at some point. You don't have to memorize everything. And I think the other big piece of advice I got is don't wait to run a game until you think you've memorized all the rules, because you'll never memorize them all anyways. Don't waste all that time. Get a pretty good understanding, and then just start playing. You'll learn as you go. You'll figure it out. It'll be fun, and you'll get better and better at it the more you do it. But don't wait. Like, I've seen people who said, well, in a year I'm going to run a game, but I got to do all this prep before I do it. I'm just like, no, don't do that. Just get into it now. You'll love it.
That's practically the sort of thing that drove me into like a DMing myself. I guess, because after playing for a while, I do feel like, hey, I think that is something fun that if we add this small homebrew rule into the game, it would be pretty fun. And my dungeon master was actually having like issues already, like following too many requests, all these outrageous requests from his crazy players. So so we didn't get to add too many new rules. So I ended up running my own homebrew game, and that's how I really get into like DMing.
Yeah, I found that, and once I did it, I really kicked myself a little bit because of waiting so long, because it is really fun. It's a huge creative outlet. Because, like, think what drew me to playing was, hey, I get to make a really cool character, and I get to think about backstory, and I get to think about what powers I'm going to get at certain levels, and there's a lot of fun there. There's a lot of creative thinking in your mind. But imagine now that you take that same kind of thing, but you add it to, you get to think about all the NPCs. You get to think about all the places they might go. You get to think about creatures that maybe they've heard of, or maybe something they've never heard of and you've created yourself. All that creativity gets to flow out of you now that I didn't realize until I became a GM. I think that's what drew me to it, and that's what's got me hooked on wanting to run games. I still like to play a game, but man, do I love the idea of building a homebrew anything, whether it's a setting or a full campaign or a full world, or even if it's just one little village that has some really cool people in it, and maybe one little cool storyline that's going on about, some cult that's, hidden in the basement, or some forest thing that's happening right near the town, and they're going to take care of it. I mean, just coming up with that stuff is super fun, and I think allows that creativity to come out. So are you running currently, are you in any long running games right now, or that you're GMing or playing in, week after week right now?
Yeah, well, I run two games. I'm playing in one. So one of them is Adventurers League. After doing Storm King's Thunder, they have traveled back in time to do Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Is the homebrew game I'm doing. All the characters start at high level, at level 11, and they are pretty much playing in a completely homebrew setting that I pretty much created a whole cloth myself. It's I just make it an unlimited sort of world where it's not a planet that is everything is flat. There is no end to the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
There are like over 9 suns, and you just there is no compass because there is no magnetic pole, so you just follow the direction of the sun. You just say go follow the second sun and you will find this place, that sort of stuff.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Is it a high magic, low magic kind of setting?
High and low magic, because the further you go towards a certain direction, the less magic there would be, and more desolation. But there is lots of energy, like elemental energy or like natural phenomenons, thunder's electricity, and it creates like a setting where it's easier to build a technological based civilization there.
Oh, very cool.
And so it's a separation between magic and technology, and so that I can make them have let them have adventures in the like 19 parallel of the 1960s of our world, while still being in the same place.
Oh, yeah. So I did a homebrew where, because I wanted to kind of do the same thing where they could take their characters and put them in different worlds that weren't necessarily just the D&D world. So I did a thing that was basically built on portals, where I had this mage who had built this hallway of doors, and he hired the group at a very low level to go through these doors he created. And it could take him anywhere. It could take him to another fantasy world. It could take him to a sci-fi world. It could take him to a modern world, all these different places. And it allowed me as a GM to say, oh, I want to explore this little setting. Let's see how the characters react when they're in that setting, and they loved it because it was like they were jumping around, they were still leveling up, they were using their characters and cool stuff. And for me, it was cool because I could really develop these different settings and say, what happens when you put D&D characters in, like a 1920s movie, or what happens when you put D&D characters in a Wild West, or what happens when you put, them in feudal Japan or something.
So, well, yeah, that's that's the thing, isn't it? It's like it's really when you have a lot more of those westerns, or like those old like kung fu series where people go place from one place to another, just looking at new culture and how interact with them. It feels very adventure like, back then.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Genre. But nowadays it seems as if all the TV series and everything has become really insular. It's like it deals with almost like things we see on the news or things like that. It feels more current, but it just doesn't bring a lot of, doesn't give you a lot of those adventure like feel. You are not like you are not dealing with something completely foreign.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, isn't going out to meet new cultures or something completely weird. Just imagine a whole new society. It's just like almost a facsimile of our current life and war and stuff like that. It's things that we've been fixated on for such a long time. It's like it doesn't spark the imagination anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's up to us as the GMs to do that. We got to create that fantastical world that people want to go explore, that's different than anything, or at least gives them that feeling of exploration, that or wonder of, hey, what's that thing that's just over the hill, or what's the next thing just around the corner. I want to go out and see what that is. Let's get the group together and go. I like that.
Yeah, it's like I have like this. I haven't read any literature that supports this, but I do feel that humans are really attracted to story and narrative as a substitute for, I mean, people in our current day and age. They are really attracted to stories, and because they don't do any that much initiation ritual when they travel anymore, because in Australia's like Aboriginal society, that is, once they have reached a certain age, they do their walkabout. They just travel. That's how they grow up. They just decide to travel and go somewhere, experience new things, and just to learn a lot about the world by traveling. And I guess nowadays, because we are so stuck in our lifestyle and we don't get to travel as much. Travel is pretty expensive. We go into stories instead. But it is also a very efficient way of experiencing all that, because back then the media wasn't that great. So like perhaps in the medieval times you had all these journeymen. They go from one place to another to learn. But nowadays we can just get all our education from the internet or even from other medias where we learn from other people's life. It's become a junk food for us.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like a fast food, or maybe not as it's food, but maybe it's still not the best food for you. Yeah, that's a good analogy. All right. Well, I didn't want to keep you too long. We run about an hour. I think we covered a bunch of cool stuff, but I'm hoping that this is maybe just one of many interviews down the road. Maybe we'll have you back on the show at some point, or even if we could talk you into come playing a game, one of our one shots, you could jump in, and we've played with people all over. We've done some one shots with some players that were from Ireland, and we did some from the U.S. and Canada, and we can always find some type of time zone that would work, and we could do some fun stuff. And I hope that the channel keeps doing well. Your channel is fantastic. I hope everybody goes and checks it out. I'll keep plugging it because anybody that I think is new to Dungeons and Dragons, I think the way you've presented it, it's a really good way to take a look at it and get into it and get an understanding of the overwhelming amount of information. It's a lot of good information, and you can take it in bite-sized samples. And I just love the visual aspect of it too. So I hope that the channel continues to grow. I hope that you're enjoying it, and that you keep giving us great videos. I'll definitely look out for more.
And yeah, talk to you again.
Yeah. So is there anything, any last thing, anything that you were hoping to maybe talk about that I didn't cover or question, or is there anything you want to plug that you have upcoming that people might want to keep an eye out for?
All right, yeah, thanks. Well, actually, I am doing my How to Dungeon Master for Complete Beginner series. Working on right now. I will be releasing a video, I guess, in the next weekend because I release my videos on weekends, either Saturday or Sunday. So this one is coming up, and it will be a series of about, I guess, 6 episodes for now.
Oh, nice.
Hopefully, that's really going to help new DMs get started.
Perfect. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll put the link in the chat, and then when I go to upload this the show up onto YouTube, I'll put the link to CJ's channel there, and you guys can check it out. Go to subscribe to him, and then hit your notifications so that the minute he sends that up or puts those videos up, you guys can see them. So, all right, CJ, thanks for joining me on a Sunday night or a Monday morning for you, Monday afternoon, and hopefully we'll be able to talk more, and we'll get to play some more. Maybe we'll get to play a game at some point.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Lucian.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
All right. So thanks very much.